Hey folks, we are fastly approaching the 1 month to go point leading up to the release of Tears of the Kingdom. During my many daily excitement and anticipation moments for this game, I was thinking about how it could end. Funny that, considering it hasn't even started. I was going over different scenarios of how we could get there, what might happen, and how the fate of Hyrule will look following all of it. There were a ton of different ideas and routes flowing in my mind, which made me think of a very non-Zelda-like thing regarding the end of the story. What if Tears of the Kingdom has multiple endings? Some video games feature this situation, or situations where the story can end differently based on a ton of different factors. This is in no way a thing done in Zelda games, but there is absolutely no harm in discussing the idea. You hear that 1% of comment sections? It's just discussing the idea. No getting mad at me today. As for the other 99% of you, carry on being your lovely selves. Anyway, let's discuss everything that could come with this sort of situation in a Zelda game, specifically with the highly anticipated upcoming installment Tears of the Kingdom in mind. But first, be sure to go and grab yourself a snack or drink and send them in to get featured right here. And let's get into this one. So how exactly does multiple endings work in a video game? Well, it really is as simple as it sounds. Sometimes. A classic example of this is a video game story having a possible neutral, good, and bad ending. 3 different outcomes to the conclusion of the story based on different factors throughout the adventure. This can be as simple as if your character is a good person or not, all the way to the more extreme factors such as decisions made during the main quest. One of my favourite examples of this can be seen in one of my all-time favourite games, Fallout 3. In that game, there are 3 main endings. Oh, apparently there are 4? I remember it being 3. Anyway, the pathway to these different outcomes largely depends on your character's karma, as in, if they've been a good person or a bad person, or in the middle. That is, in basic terms, the neutral, good, and bad endings. Now, this doesn't easily fit into a Zelda game, as Link doesn't have something measuring his karma. He could, but he doesn't, and I don't think it would fit overly well in a Zelda game, as Link's quest is a lot more predetermined with the actions he must take. However, that could always change. On the more complex side of things, another form of a game having multiple endings can be when the outcomes are dependent on a lot more specific things the character does, and a lot of little specifics. From decisions in quests to just the order you play the game, how and when different events take place. This is in a sense similar to the butterfly effect, in that one small action could change the outcome entirely, knocking on a chain effect of little events that in the grand scheme of things could massively decide and alter the outcome. In this situation, there are often tons of variations of the endings, most just with little differences, but to the point where there can be so many slightly different outcomes, as well as massively different outcomes. Like the last one, I don't think this fits into a Zelda game too easily, but there is another form that I'd like to discuss and believe it could fit very well. That form of multiple endings is the this or that endings. I don't know or care if that is or isn't a technical term, but allow me to explain. This would be a game with just 2 possible outcomes, this or that. I feel like this would be the most fitting form of multiple endings for a Zelda game. The first one discussed relies on a karma meter, which wouldn't really fit in my opinion. The second one discussed is complex to the point where the structure and layout of a Zelda game would have to be uprooted and replanted entirely differently for it to work. However, this form could work pretty well. I'll get into some examples more in depth in just a moment, but to explain it real quick, imagine if at the end of Breath of the Wild, instead of the inevitable outcome of defeating Ganon and reuniting with Zelda, that this was just one of 2 outcomes. The other outcome could have been that we do defeat Ganon, but actually lose Princess Zelda. Oh man, that would have set up such a cool plot point for Tears of the Kingdom in some alternate timeline. That was of course just an example that is rather unrealistic. But with this form of multiple endings explained, let's actually get into how this could properly fit into a Zelda game, as in how it would potentially look, how would we know which one is the canon outcome, or would it create even more timeline splits, making them both canon? In this case, let's look at it in regards to Tears of the Kingdom. Now of course this is speculative, as this video has been made and published prior to the game actually being out. I am in no way trying to say that this will actually happen. With that said, how could I see this form of multiple endings being slotted into Tears of the Kingdom? Well firstly, let's think of a way that the game could end, as in your bog standard predetermined ending of the story. I would imagine some sort of epic final showdown against Ganondorf, let's say starting underground and then rising to the surface, and then ending in the sky. Pretty epic, right? In the end, we defeat Ganondorf and seal him away once again with the Blade of Evil's Bane. Assuming we do repair it anyway. There we go. The game ends with us defeating Ganondorf, and afterwards Hyrule can finally begin a proper rebuild. Ganondorf was not able to fully destroy the kingdom as he threatened to do. This is our this outcome. But what if there was another outcome? The that outcome. The that to the this. God, that's a bit confusing to say. Anyway, in the alternate outcome, what if we still defeat Ganondorf, but instead of Hyrule finally being able to rebuild, in this alternate outcome, Hyrule is actually destroyed as part of the battle? Or perhaps before it. This could happen based on certain things you either did or didn't do during the main quest. In a somewhat similar way to how in Breath of the Wild, if you didn't take on the Blights prior to Calamity Ganon, you need to fight them first. Kinda like this idea, but on a much more extreme level of impact. Like mentioned, the this outcome of this or that would be defeating Ganondorf and Hyrule is all good again, ready for repair. However, the that outcome of this or that would be that Ganondorf is defeated. However, as part of the final showdown, Hyrule is completely obliterated. Not like how Calamity Ganon left it. No. Much worse. I'm talking about Hyrule being left as a wasteland. Going back to Fallout 3, much like that. How this could happen? I don't know. Perhaps if you didn't do or complete a certain task, or multiple, in the main story, Ganondorf is able to summon so much malice from the Blood Moon that Hyrule is destroyed entirely by it. But if you did do or complete those certain tasks, Ganondorf would not be able to do that, creating two potential outcomes of the story. Two endings. But now for the really tricky part. Which one is the canon ending? A tough question if you've ever tried to discuss Zelda lore. There are a few ways this could go, but one I'd prefer it to go if this ever happened. So you've got your two outcomes. I'd prefer it if the first one, where Hyrule is fine and able to start repairing, would be the canon ending, with the other, where Hyrule is literally destroyed, being a non-canon, special, alternative ending. However, Zelda games and what is or isn't canon is never as simple as that. Or at least going off every single game prior to Breath of the Wild. There would be the discussion, no matter what, of multiple endings creating multiple timelines. In a sense, this is something we saw but didn't actually see in Ocarina of Time. If you look at the Zelda timeline, following the events of Ocarina of Time are three timeline splits. One where the hero is defeated, one where the hero just goes on his merry way, and one where the hero didn't even show up. We play out the events of the hero defeating Ganon and going on his merry way. The other two aren't actually seen, just created as part of the timeline and piecing games together. What I've been discussing is like that, but actually being able to play out the multiple outcomes. However, in my version, I would like only one of them to be canon. There would inevitably be the discussion of my that outcome creating its own timeline, and yeah, it very well could, but that isn't how I would like it. For example, with Fallout 3, despite having multiple possible endings, there is one that is the canon ending, and lines up with the Fallout timeline. Sadly, Zelda isn't as simple as that. Perhaps that is the problem with trying to do this in a Zelda game. The timeline. It's always the f***ing timeline, man. Even if the developers go down the route of sort of resetting it or starting a new chapter far ahead of everything else, which is what it appears they are doing, there would still be the discussions of it creating more timelines. Which isn't an issue or anything, it's just a big headache. Though I'd be more than happy to go through that. I love Zelda games no matter what. This was just an idea I wanted to discuss and go into how I think it could work well. Please leave your thoughts on this and ideas on how it could work, how you'd like to see it happen, and anything else regarding the idea down below in the comments. I love reading your comments and replying to as many as I can. I'll see you lovely folks down there. Be sure to drop a wee like down below if you enjoyed, and also consider subscribing for more fabulous Zelda content all the way up to release of Tears of the Kingdom and beyond, which is almost just 1 month away. Follow my social media pages linked below to keep up to date or send in a snack or drink photo. And as always, a huge massive amazing shout out goes to all of my channel supporters, with a very special shout out going to new member Golden Nintendo Dude. Thanks a ton. Your support really helps me to make these videos week in, week out, all month long, 365 days a year. If you'd like to join them and get yourself a shout upon joining and your name at the end of every video, then consider supporting via the links below. Thanks for watching. I hope you all have an amazing day or night, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.